Here we are with another episode of Coach Kern's Corner. I am your host, Luke Kearns, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. In today's episode, I am going to kind of go off the cuff a little bit and speak from my heart with a few things that I want to share and feel like are important to carry with you every single day of your life, whether you are an athlete, a parent, a married couple, in a relationship, in school, whatever it is that you're doing. I think this is going to be hopefully something of value that you can take with you from the days moving forward. So, I want to share a couple stories first and kind of give a little bit of background to the stories and what the athletes learned through going through some hardships. And so, um, I guess I should say what I really want to focus on, though, is consistency and why it actually matters, specifically towards track and field, but how you can apply it to any area of life that you want to. And so, stories are from a brother and sister that I've been training for, I think, 5 to 6 years now. And I'll speak about the young man first, and then I'll give the story about the young lady as well. But I started coaching him when he was a freshman in high school, which was, golly, 6, 7 years ago. And right away, I noticed he had really good speed. And again, when I moved back to Holland and started coaching as a sports performance coach, we did a ton of sprinting, we timed a ton, and I was just able to see his progression through the years. And I would try to encourage him to run track and kind of sprinkle it in there and just tell him, man, like, you got speed. I think it'd be worth at least giving it a shot. And so senior year, he decided to finally run a few meets. And his first meet ever, I think it was like 40 degrees out, windy, rainy, typical West Michigan meet to start this season. And I think he went out with a 11.8, I think it was. And so pretty good first meet, and running sub 12 in those conditions with never running track before was pretty cool. And so he ran that meet and then took off about a month or so. During this time, he was playing baseball, huge baseball kid, loved it. He thought he wanted to play baseball in college. And so was really pursuing it with everything that he had. And from my end, I just want my kids to pursue what they're passionate about, but also, if they're fast, maybe give track a try. Um, so he did, and I think it was the meet before conference that he ran his second time, and I think he dropped zero point 0.4 or half a second off of his 100 time and ran a 11.4, I think it was, somewhere in that range. And he finished the race. I was like, man, I think you should try to give track a shot in college. I think you got it. And at that point, I think he started seeing how fast he could be. Even with minimal track training, he just had natural speed. And so he ended up attending a local college here and walked on to the track team. And he ended up being one of the top sprinters his freshman year. And I think he ran a 10.7 or 10.8 his freshman year in the 100. And I think he placed top three at conference, and then ran a low 22. I think it was 22 flat or 22.1 in the 200. And I think he got top eight or somewhere in that range. I could be off, but he did really well, especially for being a freshman with never running track before. And so that following summer, which would have been the summer of 2022, he, him and his sister have been training with me every summer for quite some time. And I just kind of noticed he kind of backed off a little bit. And I wasn't going to, press him for it. I just kind of wanted him to go through an experience of the value of being consistent with training. And so I kind of backed off a little bit. He found success right away with track, and as a young individual athlete in track and field, it's kind of easy to be like, wow, I did some really good things, and he did. And I think he kind of had this notion that he was going to be able to maintain that until next year. And so me going through the experience of understanding how important it is to just be diligent with your training, even in the off season. I wanted him to maybe experience not being consistent and what it does to you. And so we had maybe 35 to 40 sessions that summer. I think he attended maybe half. Um, And then going into the fall training season for the college, he was doing stuff, but you could just tell he wasn't as dialed in as I've seen him before. And then there were other factors outside of training that kind of hindered his performance. But his sophomore season, he did not run well. He was running low 11s, which again is fast, but compared to what he went his freshman year, he definitely didn't take a step in the right direction. And I'll never forget this. After his last meet, he would usually text me how his meets go and stuff like that. And he was like, "When can I get back and train?" He's like, "I'm never going to let what just happened happen again." And I I sat there and I was like, "All right." He figured it out. He finally understood why I you know I wasn't getting on him, but like why I'm so passionate about making sure kids stay consistent with their training. And he figured it out because he didn't find success the way he did his freshman year. And sometimes you got to go through a season of just not doing well and not performing well to come to that realization that, especially in track and field, you can't take a lot of days off, and you can't just expect your speed to be the same as it was the year before just because you ran well. And so I told him, take a few weeks off, like recover, and then once we get back into training, man, like we got to get into it. And so I mean, he got after it that summer and super consistent. And for me, I took the summer off personally in 2023 just because I wanted to spend a lot of quality time with my wife and son and just be present with them. And it was, I hadn't had a summer off in I think 8 or 9 years since coaching right out of college. And so I needed a break. It was much needed, and it was honestly probably one of the best summers I've had. But outside of that, I wanted to see if he was telling me the truth with his consistency. And so we would meet up at the track maybe 3 to 4 times a month. And I tell you what, his times consistent, his times over the summer started to drop. And you could just tell he was putting in the work. And that made me want to go to the track with him a little bit more too, and really try to get him to understand the importance of why we have to be so diligent with our training. And so he's currently in indoor season right now. He set a PR in his 60. He set a PR in his open 400, and he's due for a breakout season, I think, and it's going to be really fun to watch him progress. And so that's one story. And then on the flip side, his sister kind of went through the same thing in the same summer. And I want to put her on blast a little bit. She was even worse than he was during the summer, and she maybe showed up to 5 to 10 sessions. Um, and again, during that summer, we were going to the track 1 or 2 times a week, and it was probably maybe the third or fourth track workout she showed up to. And it was, I think, one of the last sessions we had of the summer before they went back to school. And I remember just walking off the track with her. All the other athletes had left. And I just looked at her and I was like, for real, what do you want with track? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And she told me, and then I asked her, I was like, did anything that you just did this summer line up with what you want to like achieve for your goals? And she was like, no. She was like, honestly, I was a bum this summer. I was like, you were a bum. And it was a serious conversation. And my athletes know if I get on them, it's not because I'm trying to make them feel bad. It's because I know what they're capable of doing. And if I don't see their actions lining up with the words that they are speaking, I'm going to call them out on it. And so I called her out on it. And I said, look, you are more than able to achieve what you just told me, but you have to understand what it takes to get there. And so I told her, from here on out, you have to be as consistent and diligent with working out as possible. You have to flip that switch in your brain to just go mode. And when it's time to train, it's time to train. When it's time to recover, recover. Enjoy being a high school kid. I'm not asking these kids to do anything outlandish, but I'm more of asking, when it's time to train, where's your focus and intensity at? And so she figured it out. She was so consistent through the fall and the winter of last indoor season, set PRs. The only practices that she missed were the ones that I told her to take off. And so she dialed in, and then she ended up qualifying for outdoor state. She ran, I think, a 12.6. And you should see her. She's maybe 5 foot, and she's just a little jitterbug. I mean, she can move. But she walked off the track, and I was like, I asked her a question. I was like, do you now know why I was on your case back in the fall? She's like, yeah, so this could happen. I was like, that's exactly why. And so she figured it out. She figured out the hard way of me kind of having a hard conversation with her and encouraging her to actually take a next step in her development. And, she listened and it paid off. And so, her and her brother last summer, 2023, trained together and she dialed in as well. And it's so cool to see them train together. When we go to the track, we absolutely love it. We're laughing, telling jokes and stories, but when they run and when they get dialed in to actually get timed and whatever drilling we're doing, they lock in and it pays dividends. And right now we're in indoor season. Still, she's super consistent. These last 7, 8 months, for her and her brother, the best I've ever seen, the most motivated I've seen them, and it's paying off. And she's run a low 8.1 in the 60, um, low 27 in the 200, where she never even broke, I think, 28.4 or 28.3 in the 200 outdoor. So on an indoor track, she's already running almost a second faster. Um, she's running low 60s in the open four. And so she's well on her way to have a really great senior season, because she's learned how to be consistent. And so, I kind of get on my kids, and this is for anybody listening. It's like, where is your consistency at? Like, are you someone who talks a ton, but then you can't even back up what you're saying? And this is something that I think the younger folks have an issue is because they always see these people talking about how good they are. They did this, they ran these times, blah, blah, blah. And then they get on the track and they're saying the same things, but yet they get rolled because their consistency wasn't there. Maybe they missed 2 weeks of training and then they expected to show up on the track and just light it up. I'm sorry, that's never going to work. And, for me, I got some kids that we're coaching right now, and we're really training hard to really understand what it means to be consistent. And so, for anyone out there, like, I don't care who you are, I don't care what times you ran, I don't care, what your name is, I don't care what your grade is, I don't care anything. Where are your priorities, and do your actions line up with what you're saying? Because if they don't, all your talk is just like a leaf in the wind. It's just going to blow away, and it doesn't mean anything. But when push comes to shove, are you consistent in your habits? Are you consistent in the way that you approach your training to where you know that this is going to pay off in the long run? And we can even take it a step further. The habits you develop now of being consistent, are you going to be able to take that into the workforce or into college? Or if you want to start a family and get married, are you going to be able to take those habits into all of those areas of life and be consistent in everything? Because what you do now is going to set you up for later. And I hope you understand that, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that as a coach, I'm looking for my athletes to be extremely consistent with what they say. And if I see anything that doesn't line up with what they're saying and their actions don't back it up, I'm going to call them out, because that is a sure way to set yourself up for failure. And so, anyone listening to this, I hope this brings a little bit of encouragement, maybe a little bit of motivation to figure out, hey, maybe I need a little bit more consistency with my diet and making sure that I'm fueling my body with the proper nutrients that it needs to perform at a very high level. Or maybe it's with my training. Maybe I need to be more consistent with showing up and making sure that I'm being coachable to what my coach is telling me to do. Or if you're an adult, are you consistent with your habits of making sure that you're showing up to work on time and you're taking care of your body, you're exercising, making sure that you are providing for your family? Whatever it is, ask yourself the question, how consistent are you in your habits? And if you feel like you're not, what a beautiful thing it is to where you can start right now and develop habits that will become a behavior that will produce the results that you're looking for. And so with whatever you're doing, consistency is key.